Representative Tupola.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have another floor amendment.
Mr. Clerk, have copies of the floor amendment been distributed to the members?
Yes, Mr. Speaker. Copies of House Amendment number 4 have been distributed.
Representative Tupola.
Mr. Speaker, I move for the adoption of the floor amendment.
Representative Ward.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
Any discussion? Representative Tupola.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you for allowing us to introduce this amendment to the bill. This one is in specific about carving out the TAT for the outer islands. And one of the reasons being is what I brought up in my previous comments on second reading, which was that we didn't have enough informational hearings on the outer islands, as well as some of the comments that were brought up in the testimony from some of the council members made me start to look through some of these auditors' report. I read through the 117-page document that was produced by the 2014-2015 County Working Group to really dig deep and figure out what exactly are we doing with the TAT? How many times has it been touched? So right here in this document, and I would ask that I could please have permission to insert the county working document into the journal.
So ordered.
Thank you. It says here, January 1987, the TAT was at 5%. 1994, it went up to 6%. 1999, 7.25%. 2009, it went up to 8.25%. July 2010, it went up to 9.25%. And today we're voting to take it up one more percent, 10.25%. And the reason why I bring that up is because the amount of times that we touch the TAT is what kind of stirred the necessity for this body to ask a working group to start to look into the TAT, the distributions, the fairness. So this group was mandated by the legislature to convene. They did so in a, I think they were allotted $150,000 for a consultant to help them to determine how many services the state provides versus how many services the city provides, and if the current allocation of the TAT is fair. And so if you look through this document, there's lots of good numbers in there, and they came up with this by using financial statements from each county to determine how many services they're providing in regards to tourism, and if that is equitable per the amount of dollars given to them by the TAT tax. And so I'll just skip to the end, but the group had some recommendations, but one of the ones that they all agreed on, which is something we should consider, is that if we're going to touch the TAT, that we should touch it once and for all and do it the right way. And we have great data here provided by a working group that spent lots of hours, lots of time looking into a better way to do this. And by us doing it in a way that everyone understands and that there's fair informational hearings everywhere, I think we'll have a better outcome. I think we're going in the right direction, but people are just misunderstanding. And it took me a while to read this and understand it clearly, but they came up with a fair, predictable, simple, and flexible way to touch the TAT. And I'll just read the one recommendation that they unanimously agreed on, that they would have the tourism special fund allocation would begin at $82 million, and then it would be indexed to the CPI, the Consumer Protection Index Code, which means that it would fluctuate dependent on how much dollars come in. It would leave the Turtle Bay, the Convention Center, the Special Land Development Fund as is, and that it would divide the remaining amounts of the TAT, 55 for the state, 45 for the county. And when we got a report from the Department of Economic and Business Development and Tourism, they said that last year, in 2015, we brought in $435 million in TAT. And so when they accounted that out, that ended up that the city and county of Honolulu got $45 million, Hawaii got $19 million, Maui $23 million, Kauai $14 million, and that was the total of the 103 cap that was given there. So the reason why we're proposing this amendment is because I feel like we're just at the very, I guess, crest of really understanding this, and we have this data that just barely came out, that we should consider when we touch the TAT that it be distributed in a fair way. I think the 103 cap, per the findings in this report, ended up being less than how much money is spent statewide on tourism, so not just for our county, but statewide. So statewide, $245 million is spent on, which means that the cap is below the amount that we're spending on it, not just for all the outer islands, for our island too. And so the way that this goes, it would distribute it in such a way that all the counties would get a fair share according to the findings of it. Now, we don't need to do it exactly this way. Obviously, the legislature has discretion, but it brings me to think that as we touch a TAT tax that for last 2015 brought in $31 million roughly on the outer islands, and it brought in $344 million on this island, that we should study it carefully. We're talking about a $2.4 billion tax increase that we're voting on, and we should do it carefully because these are taxpayer dollars, and they're not just our dollars, but they're dollars of every single person that lives throughout the state of Hawaii, and that's why we've offered the following floor amendment. Thank you.